Today we will learn about why some goods are public and others are private. The difference between the two is that private goods are supplied by businesses and public goods are supplied by the government. To understand the need for certain goods to be provided by governments, first we need to understand why businesses, or the market, fails to provide them. Market failure occurs when the market, the combination of buyers and sellers, does not produce the socially optimal amount of a good or service. This socially optimal quantity of a good occurs when producers supply the exact amount demanded by society at a given price, which is where the last unit of a good produced conveys equal benefit and cost to society. Market failure can either occur when producers overproduce or make more of a good than benefits society, or underproduce, where they don't make enough to incur all of the benefits. Both types of market failures occur when firms fail to understand the true cost of production, or supply, and the true benefit to society, the demand, of a good they produce. Overproduction often occurs when firms fail to recognize the full cost of the good. Most firms only consider the cost and benefit of producing a good for the buyer and seller directly involved in the transaction, but most goods and services have costs and benefits that impact more than those two parties. For example, pollution used to be a cost of production that businesses did not have to bear. However, it is certainly a cost to society and has an influence on the socially optimal amount of production. Companies that do not account for pollution underrepresent the costs of providing that good. Therefore, those companies will produce more than is optimal, and the amount they produce has a greater cost than benefit. Conversely, when companies do not recognize the full benefit of their product to society, they often underproduce the good. These indirect benefits and costs for society are known as positive and negative externalities, respectively. Both are bad because both lead to inefficient use of resources. As we know, resources are finite and must be carefully used to maximize their utility to society. For some goods, the market system does an excellent job of providing them and has been described as having an invisible hand effect that guides economies towards efficient use of resources. The requisites for being private goods, or goods that the free market can efficiently provide, are that the goods are exclusive and rival. Exclusivity means that goods must be purchased before they can be consumed. For example, to eat ice cream, consumers must first buy it. People who are unwilling or unable to pay cannot enjoy the ice cream by proxy. For a good to be rival means that it is not infinite. Consuming a unit of that good means that it is not available for other people to have. If a good doesn't meet these conditions, it will encounter the free rider problem, which is when private businesses cannot profit from providing the good because it can be enjoyed by the non-paying masses. One example are roads. So long as it is possible to incur the benefit of driving on a road that someone else pays for, there is no reason for drivers to contribute. This is an example of a positive externality, where the full benefit of the road is not recognized through the transaction between a single buyer and seller, in this case, perhaps, a landowner and a contractor. The free market tends to underproduce these goods. If the consequences of underproduction are extreme, the government must step in and provide the good for society instead, and these are known as public goods. Another example of a public good is national defense. National defense is not exclusive and not rival. One person benefiting from national defense does not prevent others from doing so, and so long as someone pays for it, others do not need to pay to reap the benefit. If national defense were private, we can estimate that not enough people would be willing to pay for it to be provided in sufficient supply. This is why the government must be responsible for national defense and other public goods. The government can force citizens to pay for these goods and services through taxation, so that everybody pays for a service that everyone benefits from. However, unlike the free market, there is no invisible hand force guiding the government to efficient production and allocation. Governments must instead estimate the will of the people through means like majority voting. The problem is that each vote presents one person's opinion about a government issue as binary, either for or against. The reality is that most people's feelings about voting issues usually fall along a spectrum, with some feeling strongly and others feeling mildly. For example, if Tina, Tim, and Tracy, a doctor, teacher, and farmer, all vote on whether the government should provide subsidies for maize crops, they might vote 2-1 no. However, if we could measure how much these individuals care about the outcome of the vote, we might see that Tracy cares a great deal and Tina and Tim only a little bit. In this case, voting did not reveal the maximum benefit to society. So if private goods have to deal with the free rider problem, public goods have to contend with voting problems, where a democratic vote may not reveal the true will of the people. Governments also have to deal with lobbying from special interest groups. These are groups of people that care intensely about a specific topic and will invest substantial resources into lobbying the government in favor of their opinion. If a government policy, like providing grain subsidies, stands to benefit a few people very greatly, it is cost efficient for those few farmers to invest a lot into advocating for it. Conversely, if the cost is spread out over many people, for example, the population of Canada, then each person only has to pay a little more, and it's not worth many resources to argue against the policy. So, in this case, the few will benefit at the expense of many. Governments are not all-knowing entities. They must approximate the will of the people as best they can. Both these problems are difficult for them to account for. Neither are free markets a perfect substitute. To further complicate matters, it is possible to provide many goods either publicly or privately, each with its own benefits and costs. It's important that we understand the circumstances where free markets and governments each tend to fail to use resources efficiently, so that we can be involved in deciding which goods should be provided privately and which should be public.